They don't fear the loudest voice in the room. They fear the one who speaks last, or not at all. There's a certain kind of person who doesn't need attention to command it. They walk in and suddenly the atmosphere tightens. Not because they're famous, not because they're violent, but because their presence carries a quiet warning, a signal, a gravity. They don't chase approval. They don't explain themselves. They don't even need to raise their voice because what they carry is the most dangerous weapon a human being can possess, a mind that cannot be manipulated. Have you noticed? The moment you start changing, truly changing, when you become calmer, clearer, and less available, the people around you start to shift. They fidget, they joke, they offer false concern. But deep down, they're not confused. They're afraid, not of your anger, but of your clarity, not of what you say, but of what you no longer need to say. You stop explaining, stop performing, stop needing to be liked. And that alone makes you terrifying, because you've touched something they've spent their whole lives avoiding. Truth, superiority, not over others, but over yourself. You no longer crave to be chosen. You no longer beg to belong. And that emotional cage they're still trapped in, you've already stepped out of it. Machiavelli once wrote, "The predictable man is a controllable man." Nietzsche warned, "The free mind will always be alone, but it cannot be conquered." Understand this. The world doesn't reward independence. It rewards obedience. It's designed to keep you comfortable, agreeable, quiet. But every once in a while, someone chooses the opposite. They choose discipline over comfort, stillness over applause, detachment over validation. And if you're still reading this, you just might be one of them. This is how you build a mind that terrifies, not with threats, not with rage, but with the calm, quiet certainty that you no longer belong to anyone. And that is what makes you, 1. Emotional control as the first weapon. Untouchable. Weak men react. Strong men respond. But terrifying men, they wait. They let the storm pass. They watch the chaos unfold. They observe every word, every action, every reveal. And only then do they decide. In war, in business, in love, the one who loses control first loses power. It's not rage that makes you strong. It's the ability to contain that rage, like a blade unsheathed only when the outcome is already yours. Because here's the truth. When you let emotion take the wheel, you're not in control. You're being played. The world is full of triggers. A casual insult, a fake compliment, a manufactured crisis designed to make you flinch. Because the moment you react, you're revealed. And the revealed man is the predictable man. And the predictable man is a controllable man. A strong mind doesn't suppress emotion. It studies it. Pain becomes data. Jealousy becomes a mirror. Anger becomes leverage. You no longer say, "I feel this way." You say, "Interesting. Let's track where this leads." Machiavelli would tell you, never show your true emotions in public. Never let them know what rattles you, because perception bends reality. And silence? Silence is far more terrifying than any explanation. The most dangerous man in the room isn't shouting. He isn't pacing. He's still watching, calculating, untouched, because he holds the one trait everyone else lacks: strategic delay. He doesn't offend his ego. He doesn't chase closure. He doesn't plead to be understood. He's not impulsive. He's surgical. He's already learned. Not every provocation deserves a reaction. Not every tear signals innocence. Not every anger should be released. In fact, the stronger your emotion, the deeper your pause must be. Pause before speaking. Pause before deciding. Pause before striking, not out of fear, but out of control. Because in the pause, you reclaim power. And in a world addicted to outrage, power is the rarest drug. Let's be clear, emotional control is not numbness. It is motion without manipulation. It is action without reaction. The greatest warriors in history, the men who moved empires, they weren't the loudest. They were the coldest. Not cruel, not heartless, but composed. They buried friends without tears, faced betrayal without flinching, sat across from enemies with such steady calm. It became a form of violence in itself. You don't have to be that ruthless, but you must know what's at stake. Because every time you lose control, someone else takes it. And this is where your transformation begins. If you want a mind that terrifies, not with noise, but with unshakable presence, you must be the one who never cracks, the one who never flinches, the one who makes others question their own stability just by staying still. Train your emotions to report to you, not command you. So the next time you're insulted, pause. Don't defend. Don't explain. Don't retaliate. Smile. Let them wonder what you're thinking. Let their own imagination destroy them. Because fear grows in silence. And silence, when used with precision, is the first true act of psychological warfare. So ask yourself, can you hold the silence? Can you stay in discomfort without twitching? Can you stare into chaos and not blink? If you can, you're already rising above the average. Because average men seek relief. Unbreakable men seek clarity. And clarity begins with control. 2, detachment. How to stop needing and start dominating. You will never be powerful as long as you still need something from anyone. The moment you need to be liked, you've surrendered leverage. The moment you crave to be understood, you've handed over your strings. The second you seek their validation, you forfeited your presence before you even step into the room. Let's get something straight. Neediness is not emotional honesty. It's emotional dependence. And dependence is the foundation control, just not by you. Detachment is the antidote. Not coldness, not apathy, but full spectrum psychological detachment. What does that mean? It means you no longer ask for permission to be who you are. Dilute your presence to fit fragile rooms. Over-explain your essence just to feel accepted. Here's the brutal truth. Most people don't want to understand you. They want you to make them comfortable. And if your clarity makes them feel small, if your strength exposes their excuses, they'll call you arrogant, cold, emotionally unavailable. Let them. They're not rejecting you. They're rejecting the mirror your presence holds up. And what they see is everything they've avoided becoming. You weren't born to be liked. You were born to master yourself. And mastery begins the moment you stop negotiating your existence. Think about it. Who do we truly respect? It's never the one who bends to fit. It's the one who stands firm when misunderstood. The one who doesn't shrink to be seen. The one who speaks with clarity, not consensus. The one who walks away the moment neediness pollutes the air. Detachment is not escape. It's not ghosting. It's not disappearing out of anger. It's presence without performance. It's boundaries without justification. It's the power to leave without leaving a trace of apology. Because the moment someone demands an explanation for your standards, they've already disrespected them. Detachment means walking into a room full of power plays, fake smiles, ego contests, and remaining utterly unbothered. Because you're not there to be liked. You're there to watch, to influence, to bend the room quietly without ever touching it. And here's the paradox. The less you need, the more people chase. The less you reveal, the more they obsess. The less predictable you become, the more they project power onto you. Why? Because human beings fear what they can't decode. And the man who needs nothing becomes impossible to define, impossible to contain. Let them guess. Let them wonder why you're not replying, why your silence feels heavier than words, why you don't chase, explain, or apologize. Let them drown in the stories they create around your absence. This is what Machiavelli meant by silent dominance. Not brute force, not manipulation, but gravity. You don't chase attention. You command orbits. Because while most give away power just to be seen, you must become the exception. You must embrace invisibility until visibility serves your purpose. You don't exist to be known. You exist to be effective. And often, those are not the same thing. The moment you stop explaining, the world starts adapting to your silence. And in that silence, where need once screamed, something rare is born. Presence. Not loud, not needy, but undeniable. A presence that terrifies, not with threat, not with anger, but with a quiet knowing that you no longer wait to be chosen. You choose yourself. 3. The power of solitude. Why being alone makes you dangerous. Most people aren't afraid of being alone. They're afraid of what surfaces when there's no one left to perform for, because when the audience vanishes, so does the mask. And that's why true solitude, not loneliness, but chosen separation, is terrifying to the weak and sacred to the strong. The average mind can't sit in stillness. It craves noise. It searches for distraction. It fills the silence with dopamine validation, scrolling, shallow conversations. Because when silence stretches too long, it starts to echo. And in that echo, they hear something they've buried for years. Their own voice. The terrifying mind, the one that commands respect without speaking, doesn't run from that voice. It listens. It sharpens it. It learns to move through the world without approval because it no longer seeks echo, only clarity. Solitude is not absence. It's full presence without dependency. It's a space where all false identities decay, where borrowed beliefs fall off like rust, where you stop being what the world made you and start becoming who you truly are. Nietzsche called this process the death of God, not to destroy belief, but to destroy dependence, to strip away all inherited meaning until only your raw essence remains. He believed only when you stand in that abyss, with nothing to cling to, does the real self begin to form. And it's in that psychological desert, that barren, unfiltered space, that your edge is forged. Because here's what they never teach you. You don't become unbreakable by being celebrated. You become unbreakable when you sit in your own thoughts and don't collapse. That's why most people fear solitude. It removes the buffer. No more distractions. No more applause. No one left to blame. Just you and the weight of your own mind. And if your mind is weak, you'll fold. But if you stay, if you face the boredom, the chaos, the voice in the dark, something begins to shift. You begin to think clearer, fail deeper, choose sharper, act with clean intention. Because solitude kills performance. And what's left after performance dies is real, and real is rare. Every man who's bent the world in his favor, every strategist, every leader, every sovereign soul, first walked alone. Alone with his demons, alone with his doubts, alone in the cold silence where excuses don't survive. You want to know why most men stay average? Because they can't sit still without losing their mind. They mistake silence for emptiness, stillness for weakness. But the terrifying mind knows the truth. Silence is leverage. Because the quieter you become, the more you notice what others miss. Their insecurities, their emotional tells, their micro-reactions. The moment they try to dominate a conversation, you're already 3 steps ahead. Because you're not trying to be heard. You're listening to what they didn't say. When they speak too much, you stay silent. When they move too fast, you stand still. And when the moment is right, you strike. Not with noise, not with anger, but with surgical clarity that was forged in your solitude. Solitude is an exile. It's training. It's mental conditioning. It's the dojo where presence is born. And the man who trains alone never fears walking away because he knows he's never really alone. That's why they fear you when you're comfortable in solitude, because it means they're no longer your oxygen. Their presence isn't your validation. Their absence isn't your death. You don't depend. You don't cling. You don't beg. You choose. You observe. You build. The terrifying mind isn't chaotic. It isn't desperate. It isn't chasing. It's still. It's grounded. It's patient. And it got that way by doing what weak men run from. To be alone and not collapse. To be unseen and still sharpen the blade. To be silent and let that silence grow fangs. That's not loneliness. That's power in its purest form. 4. Mental warfare. How to read, control, and outthink everyone around you. The mind that terrifies doesn't need to fight. It watches. It calculates. It waits for others to destroy themselves and then moves in silence. Welcome to psychological warfare. Not the kind fought with fists, but the kind fought with stillness, expression, and restraint. The most powerful weapon isn't aggression. It's perception. Because here's the truth. If you understand human nature, it isn't complicated, it's patterned. We are driven by a small set of forces: fear, desire, insecurity, status. And once you learn to read these, you hold the key to every reaction before it happens. Watch the body. Hear not just the words, but what's missing. Notice a shift in voice when her ego feels threatened, the glance that lingers too long, the silence they fumble to fill. Most people rush to speak, not because they're confident, but because silence feels like exposure. The sharp mind, it uses that silence like a scalpel. It cuts through masks. It reveals fractures. The longer you stay quiet, the more they reveal, because silence is an absence. It's pressure, and under pressure, truth leaks out. This is what Machiavelli understood. True control doesn't come from confrontation. It comes from awareness. He saw how people give themselves away, with their nervous chatter, with over-explaining, with the desperate need to be seen as good. But you must do the opposite. Say less, move slower, reveal nothing. When they ask about your plan, stay vague. When they insult you, don't react. When they brag, smile and nod, because the louder they get, the more you learn. And that's the first rule of psychological warfare. Let them tell you who they are. You don't need to dig. You don't need to poke. You just need to listen, like a wolf listens for weakness in a herd. But here's the twist. You don't use this power to manipulate recklessly. You use it to conserve your energy. Avoid useless battles. Win without needing to fight. Because once you understand someone's fear, you don't need to threaten them. You just need to suggest what they already fear. A look, a pause, an absence. Sometimes silence is louder than violence. Because people don't fear confrontation. They fear the unknown. So become the unknown. Never let your intentions become obvious. Never show your full hand. Never reveal your emotional center. Because once they know what shakes you, they know how to steer you. Psychological warfare isn't about being a villain. It's about understanding the game. It's about staying 5 steps ahead. Because you stopped playing checkers and started designing the chessboard. Here's what to do. Learn to pause in conversations. Let silence do the pressure work. Study emotional currency. What do they crave? Fear? Hide? Ask questions, not for answers, but to study the lies. Speak like a scalpel, not a sledgehammer. And never explain more than necessary. Let your unpredictability become your shadow. Let your calm become your legend. Let your silence turn into the room's loudest tension. Because the terrifying mind doesn't argue. It doesn't shout. It doesn't plead. It just sits and watches others destroy themselves trying to figure it out. You don't need to be smarter than everyone else. You just need to be quieter, sharper, less exposed. Because when everyone's playing emotional roulette, you're holding the blueprint to the machine. 5. The discipline of the unseen. Why your private choices create public power. They think power is visibility. They think strength is something loud. Titles, applause, appearances. But they're wrong. Real power is invisible. It's built in quiet hours behind closed doors. It's forged in the choices no one sees, in the pain no one praises, in the sacrifices no one understands. The strongest minds, they don't advertise their discipline. They train like ghosts. No cameras, no quotes, no validation, just repetition. Just a hard thing done over and over again until it becomes second nature. Because let me tell you something true. Every man who commands respect in public has bled for years in private. He doesn't wake up because he feels like it. He wakes up because he said he would. He doesn't post a struggle. He embodies its results. Because motivation, it fades. But discipline doesn't ask how you feel. It asks, will you act even when your soul says no? The terrifying mind understands this. If your actions depend on emotion, you are already defeated. But if your actions depend on decision, then fatigue, rejection, and fear lose their grip. Most men don't fail because they're weak. They fail because they wait. Wait for the perfect mood, the perfect timing, the perfect conditions. But perfection is a liar. And comfort? Comfort is a slow death. It lulls you with warmth right before it takes your edge. Discipline is this. Waking up when you're tired. finishing when you're bored, starting when no one cares. Because you know this isn't about feeling good. It's about becoming undeniable. Machiavelli wouldn't call this discipline. He'd call it control. Control over the only battlefield that truly matters, yourself. The enemy is not the system, your past, the critic. The real enemy is inconsistency. It's your need to be seen before you're ready. Your obsession with reward before you've earned anything. But here's the shift. Every hard decision made in silence is an investment in something the loud will never understand. Presence. Presence isn't born in the spotlight. It's built in repetition. It's built when no one watches. In the gym at 4 a.m. In the late night rewrite. In the quiet yes to the hard path. When every bone in your body begs for the easy one. The terrifying mind doesn't chase image. It builds structure. It understands. Reputation is never claimed. It's revealed under pressure. So stop asking, how do I become impressive? Ask instead, how do I become unshakable? And then earn it daily, quietly, relentlessly. Not because it feels good, but because the mission demands it. Because every silent decision, every unseen sacrifice is a vote for the man you're becoming. And one day, you'll walk into a room, and it will shift, not because you spoke, not because you asked, but because the atmosphere has learned to respect you before you even open your mouth. They won't know what you've done. They won't see the hours, but they'll feel it, that edge, that weight, that storm behind your calm. Because when you've trained in private, you no longer need to prove anything. You walk in, and the world adjusts. 6. The mirror and the mask. How to control how others see you without saying a word. Power rarely comes from who you truly are. It comes from what people think you are. And if you don't control the image, they'll invent one for you. Because here's the truth. No one sees you as you are. They see you through the fog of their own. Fears, status games, insecurities. So if you leave that perception unshaped, you're already at a disadvantage. But the terrifying mind never plays blind. It builds a mask. It shapes the mirror. And then it lets the world reflect itself. This is not deception. It's design. You don't lie. You don't perform. You simply decide what to show and what to let them imagine. Because mystery unsettles people, and unsettled people adapt. Every unnecessary word weakens your edge. Every explanation gives away territory. Every attempt to clear the air only clouds perception you should have left in silence. So, say less, mean more, smile slower. Let silence linger longer than they're comfortable with. Because when others can't fully read you, they can't reduce you. And when they can't reduce you, they elevate you in their minds. That's the mask. It's not fake. It's focused. It's crafted with restraint, shaped by presence, and sealed with silence. They will fill in your blanks with their projections. They'll assume you're stronger, colder, smarter, more powerful than you even intended. Not because you told them, but because you didn't. Machiavelli knew this well. He wrote, "Power lies not in what is known, but in what is hidden." Clarity is for allies. Ambiguity is for the rest. You must learn the art of strategic vagueness. When they ask what you're thinking, smile. When they pry into your direction, shift the subject. When they try to provoke, observe without flinching. This is not apathy. It's precision. You're not avoiding truth. You're controlling the battlefield. And the battlefield is always perception. Here's a rule. Never let people feel like they fully understand you. Because once they do, they either try to control you or stop respecting you. Unpredictability breeds respect. And the man who is unreadable without being chaotic, calm without being soft, silent without being empty, becomes the most psychologically dominant force in the room. Because they don't fear rage. They fear the calm they can't define, the presence they can't decode, the silence that might be strategy, or something worse. That's the mask. But what about the mirror? The mirror is what they see about themselves when they look at you. If you're disciplined, they feel lazy. If you're clear, they feel scattered. If you're detached, they feel exposed in their emotional chaos. You don't need to attack people to shake them. You just need to exist as a reminder of what they're not ready to confront. And when that happens, they'll either rise or retreat. They'll call you arrogant, cold, emotionally distant. Let them. That reaction isn't your burden. It's their mirror cracking. You weren't built to comfort mediocrity. You were built to raise a standard without even saying a word. So from this point forward, walk slower, speak less, maintain eye contact longer than they can tolerate. Smile, not to please, but to punctuate. And when you speak, eliminate filler. Be exact. Be deliberate. Because when you control perception, you don't ask for respect. You become the environment that demands it. 7. The final break. Why they'll never understand you, and why that's exactly the point. There comes a moment, not loud, not dramatic, but sharp, cold, irreversible, when you realize they were never meant to understand you. And more importantly, you no longer need them to. That's the final break. Not from them, but from a version of you that kept apologizing for being intense, kept dimming your fire so no one else would feel burned. You tried. You explained. You softened your edges. You shrank your words. You swallowed your instincts. And what did it get you? Distance, misunderstanding, and the slow death of your own truth. But now, no more. Because the terrifying mind, the one they whisper about, the one they secretly admire but openly resent, was born the moment you stopped performing for comfort. Understand this. The world will never clap for your clarity. They'll cheer your growth, so long as it doesn't challenge your stagnation. But the moment your silence begins to echo, the moment your presence forces reflection, they'll turn on you, not because you're wrong, but because you remind them of everything they're still running from. You see, mediocrity survives by agreement, and when you break that silent pact by rising, you become a threat, because your stillness starts speaking. Your composure starts exposing. Your detachment becomes a mirror, and that mirror, it burns. They'll label you cold, selfish, difficult. Let them. They don't hate you. They hate what you represent. Proof that more is possible, and that they chose comfort over growth. You violated the social contract, the one that says, we all suffer quietly together. No one stands too tall. But you stood, and that discomfort they feel, that quiet distance, that tension in the air when you speak fewer words, that's the price of sovereignty. Because once you break free from a need to be understood, you become unreachable. They can't insult you because you no longer take it personally. They can't guilt you because you've made peace with being alone. They can't cancel you because you were never subscribed to their approval in the first place. And this is the secret no one says out loud. They respect it. They feel it. They envy it. Because deep down, they wish they could do it too. They wish they could walk away, speak less, stand tall, detach cleanly, act without needing applause. But they can't. Not yet. Because they are still addicted to the echo, terrified of the silence you now thrive in. So, let them talk. Let them project. Let them distort your name, your intent, your energy. It means nothing, because you've already crossed a line, and you don't look back. Let them call you distant. Let them call you arrogant. Let them call you dangerous. Good, because they're right. You are dangerous, not because you seek destruction, but because you no longer seek permission. And a man who doesn't seek permission can be manipulated. You become the storm they can't predict, the standard they can't meet, the silence they can't decode, the mirror they can't bear to face. And from this moment forward, you don't explain, you don't chase, you don't prove, you live, you move, you choose. And the world, it adjusts. 8 of the unbreakable mind, a quiet force that changes everything. If you've made it here, to the end, through the silence, the solitude, the darkness, then know this. You are not like most. Most people would have clicked away the moment the words got uncomfortable, the moment the truth felt too sharp, the moment the mirror became too clear. But you didn't. You stayed. Not because this was entertaining, but because something inside you already knew. This wasn't just content. It was confirmation. Confirmation that your silence, your restraint, your distance was never weakness. It was preparation. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to wake up. And now that you have, don't fall back asleep. Don't return to the explanations. Don't crawl back to approval. Don't perform for people who never had the eyes to see you. You've crossed a line, the one between the agreeable and the untouchable, being understood and being undeniable. The old you is built on compliance. The new you is forged in command. Not loud, not theatrical, not desperate, but still sharp, unshaken, because the terrifying mind doesn't beg to be seen. It chooses when and if to be visible. Doesn't seek to be liked. It seeks to remain untouchable. From this moment forward, you move like a force, not noisy, only gravity. They won't always understand it, but they'll feel it. And that's the point. You didn't build this mind for applause. You built it so no one could ever break you again. So that when the storm comes, you remain still. When the pressure rises, you don't flinch. When the world shakes, you smile. Because you've trained for this in silence. And now, your silence speaks louder than any scream. This is who you are now. Not waiting, not pleasing, not explaining. You are unshaken, unmoved, unbreakable.